Hare Krishna, it's January 2nd, 2026. We're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, Text 30. Our esteemed speaker is on his way. Okay.
It's early in Philadelphia.
Yeah, the jet lag. Actually, they're based in New Jersey,
He's
but
here.
it's real close to. Yeah, Abhi's right here. Abhi's right here with his wife Asha.
Not online class, in-person class.
Yeah, it's in person. Here's Abhi. Abhi, Hare Krishna. Asha, Anuradha, Hare Krishna, Hari Hari Bol. Welcome. Abhi, we warmly invite you to lead Bhagavatam class and discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. We got the recording on. We're all set.
Good morning, Abhi.
Good morning. And then if we sung Jai Radha Madhava, or I can sing that.
We did Jai Radha.
Okay.
Bhakti and Valerie led us.
Jai.
Yeah, that's the same volumes. We have the verse written on the board.
Okay.
And if you want the book stand, you got that. But you might not need.
Okay. I think I'll be good with this.
Okay. You can start with Om Namo
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Deving Saraswating Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Tato Jaya Mudirayet
Tato Jaya Mudirayat
Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu
Nashta Prayesva Bhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavad Uttama Shloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki
Chara Charauko Bhagavan Mahidram
Charako Bhagavan Mahitram
Ahindra Bandhum Salilopagudham
Bhakti-Vandhum Saryo Bhagudham
Kirita Sahasra Hiranya Shringam
Kirita Sahasra Hiranya Shringam
Avir Bhavat Kaustubaratna Garbham
Adir Bhavat Vastubaratna Garbham
Chara Charauko Bhagavan Mahidram
Rajrako Bhagavan Mahitram
Ahindra Bandhum Salilopagudham
Ahindra Bandhum Savido Bhagudham
Kirita Sahasra Hiranya Shringam
Kirita Sahasra Hiranya Shringam
Avir Bhavat Kaustubaratna Garbham
Adir Bhavat Vastubaratna Garbham
Chara Charauko Bhagavan Mahidram
Rajrako Bhagavan Mahitram
Ahindra Bandhum Salilopagudham
Ahindra Bandhum Savido Bhagudham
Kirita Sahasra Hiranya Shringam
Kirita Sahasra Hiranya Shringam
Avir Bhavat Kaustubaratna Garbham
Adir Bhavat Vastubaratna Garbham
If anyone would like to recite.
Rajrako Bhagavan Mahidram
Chara Charauko Bhagavan Mahidram
Ahindra Bandhum Salilo Bhagudham
Ahindra Bandhum salilopagudham
Kirita Sahasra Hiranya Shringam
Kirita sahasra hiranya shringam
Avirbhavat Kaustubharatna Garbham
Avirbhavat kaustubharatna garbham
Chara Chara Puka Bhagavan Mahiram
Characharoko bhagavan mahidram
Ahindra Badhum Salilopadudam
Ahindra bandhum salilopagudham
Kirita Sahasra Hiranya Shrigam
Kirita sahasra hiranya shringam
Avirbhavat Kaustubharatna Garbham
Avirbhavat Kaustubharatna Garbham
Charako Bhagavan Mahidram
Characharako Bhagavan Mahitram
Ahindra Bandhum Salilopagudam
Ahindra bandhum salilopagudham
Rita Sahasra Hiranya Shringam
Kirita Sahasra Hiranya Shringam
Avirbhavat Kaustubharatna Garbham
Avirbhavat Kaustubharatna Garbham
Charako Bhagavan Mahidram
Characharako Bhagavan Mahitram
Ahindra Bandhum Salilopagudam
Ahindra bandhum salilopagudham
Karita Sahasra Hiranya Shringam
Kirita Sahasra Hiranya Shringam
Avirbhavat Kushtuva Ratna Garbham
Avirbhavat Kaustubharatna Garbham.
Anyone else?
Charako Bhagavan Mahidram
Characharako Bhagavan Mahitram
Ahindra Bandhum Salilopagudham
Ahindra Bandhum Salilopagudham
Kirita Sahasra Hiranya Shringham
Kirita Sahasra Hiranya Shringam
Avirbhavat Kaustubharatna Garbham
Avirbhavat Kaustubharatna Garbham
Chara,
Chara,
moving animals.
moving animals.
Achara,
Achara,
non-moving trees.
non-moving trees.
Okaha,
Ogaha,
the place or situation.
place or situation.
Bhagavat,
Bhagavat,
the personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
Mahidram,
Mahidram,
the mountain.
the mountain.
Ahi Indra,
Ahi Indra,
Shri Anantadev.
Sri Anantadev,
Bandhum,
Bandhum,
friend.
friend.
Salila,
Salila,
water.
water.
Upagudham,
Upagudham,
submerged.
submerged.
Kirita,
Kirita,
helmets.
helmets.
Sahasra,
Sahasra,
thousands.
thousands.
Hiranya,
Hiranya,
gold.
gold.
Shringam,
Shringam,
peaks.
peace.
Avirbhavat,
Avirbhavat,
manifested.
manifested.
Kaustubha,
Kaustubha,
the Kaustubha jewel.
the Kaustubha jewel.
Ratnagarbham,
Ratnagarbham,
ocean.
ocean.
Translation: like a great mountain, the Lord stands as the abode for all moving and non-moving living entities. He is the friend of the snakes because Lord Ananta is his friend. As a mountain has thousands of golden peaks, so the Lord was seen with the thousands of golden helmeted hoods of Ananta Naga. And as a mountain is sometimes filled with jewels, so also his transcendental body was fully decorated with valuable jewels. As a mountain is sometimes submerged in the ocean water, so the Lord is sometimes submerged in the water of devastation. Then you can say, you said I can read straight through 33?
And if you'd like, if you'd like.
All right, and so I'll read the translations in small purport for the next few verses. For verse 31, I'll do the Sanskrit really quickly and then translation.
Sure.
Nivitamam naya madhuvrata shriya svakirti maya vanamalaya harim suryandu vaivagniyagamam tridhamabhi parikramat pradhanikardurasadam. Lord Brahma, thus looking upon the Lord in the shape of a mountain, concluded that he was Hari, the personality of Godhead. He saw that the garland of flowers on his chest glorified him with Vedic wisdom and sweet songs and looked very beautiful. He was protected by the Sudarshan wheel for fighting, and even the sun, moon, air, fire, etc. could not have access to him. Taryeva tannabi sarasarojam atmanam ambhashvasanam viyacham dadarsha devo jagato vidhata nata parangoka visarga drishti. When Lord Brahma, the maker of the universal destination, thus saw the Lord, he simultaneously glanced over creation. Lord Brahma saw the lake in Lord Vishnu's navel and the lotus flower, as well as the devastating water, the drying air in the sky. All became visible to him. And finally, text 33. Sakarma bijang rajaso paraktaha prajasi srikshan niyadeva drishtva astaud visarga bhimukastamidyam avyaktavartmanya bhiveshitatma. Lord Brahma, thus being surcharged with the mode of passion, became inclined to create, and after seeing the 5 causes of creation indicated by the personality of Godhead, he began to offer his respectful prayers on the path of the creative mentality. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Okay.
Even if one is in the material mode of passion, to create something in the world, he has to take the shelter of the Supreme for the necessary energy. That is the path of the successful termination of any attempt. Thus in the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Om Jnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dharati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sahitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. The first one more time. Like a great mountain, the Lord stands as the abode for all moving and non-moving living entities. He is the friend of the snakes because Lord Ananta is his friend. As a mountain has thousands of golden peaks, so the Lord was seen with the thousands of golden helmeted hoods of Anantanaga. And as a mountain is sometimes filled with jewels, so also his transcendental body was fully decorated with valuable jewels. As a mountain is sometimes submerged in the ocean water, so the Lord is sometimes submerged in the water of devastation. And so we have come to the end of,
Rukmini Lakshmi Priya Dhamma Jivaman.
as well as Rachel.
And Rachel, hello Rachel.
So yes, we are coming to the end of the third canto, 8th chapter, titled Manifestation of Brahma from Vishnu, or specifically Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. And so the verse talks about, Lord Brahma at this stage, he's actually directly seeing, you could say, underneath him, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. The word Garbha can basically mean womb, and what was it? Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, basically who's lying in the ocean that's at the bottom of the universe. So there are three Paramatmas, or three Purusha avatars. The first is Karanadakashayi, or Karanabdishayi Vishnu, the manifestation of Paramatma, who is also known as Mahavishnu, literally means the big Vishnu, who lies in the causal ocean and breathes out the universes. And so he's considered the first manifestation of Paramatma for the material world. The other Vishnu tattvas, such as Lord Narayan, Lord Sankarshan and Vaikuntha, Lord Krishna and Golok Vrindavan, they have no direct touch with the material energy, that they are existing far beyond the material sky, beyond even, in one sense, beyond the Brahma Jyoti. They're existing in the Vaikuntha planets, or the topmost of the Vaikuntha planets, Srila Prabhupada calls Krishna Loka, or Golok Vrindavan. And so they have no direct touch with the material energy. And so it's with the Purusha avatars, or the Paramatma features, the three Paramatma features, that the Lord actually manifests and maintains them, and ultimately dissolves the material creation. So first there's the Lord who lies on the causal ocean, and then after he breathes out the material universes, then he enters into each universe. So first he's the Paramatma of the entire material cosmic manifestation. Then after he creates the egg of each universe, the eggshell, so to speak, of each universe, then he enters into each universe as the Paramatma of that universe, known as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and then, I believe it's from the pores of his body, he fills the lower half of the universe with water, and then he lies down in that water. And so it's in these verses, it's saying that sometimes he's visible from that water, sometimes he's actually submerged under that water. And Anuradha and I had briefly reviewed the chapter last night, and so it said that Lord Sankarshan, or Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, was, he was lying as if sleeping, though his eyes were not fully closed, indicating that from the perspective of material potency, he sometimes appears to be sleeping, but he's always fully conscious in his internal potency. And also, there's a curious word, that the word Ratna Garbham is translated as ocean. And so again, Garbham can mean womb, and Ratna means jewels. So it's said in Vedic theology that, I think it's when the rain hits the ocean on a certain constellation, then jewels are produced within the ocean. So that's why the ocean is here described as the womb of jewels, basically, or Ratna Garbham. So the Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, he's lying in this ocean, and at this stage, Lord Brahma is actually able to see him. And so it's curious. There are 3 descriptions I'm aware of Lord Brahma's journey of self-realization. There's in the 2nd canto, I believe it's 2nd canto, 9th chapter, it describes how Lord Brahma just found himself on top of a gigantic lotus flower in the middle of a dark universe. He felt like, who am I? Where am I? What am I doing here? What is this place? And he heard the word tapa, which the word tapa, in one sense, literally means like to burn, but in more common parlance, tapa means do austerity, do penance, and by doing penance, you'll be able to realize the absolute truth. But in the literal, I think, Sanskrit, it has something to do with just burning, as in heat burning. So, so tapasya, tapodivyam, basically. Yeah, he just heard that, those little words, and then in that description, say, okay, he just heard those words, he did tapasya, and then he realized Narayan and Vaikuntha. Then Narayan and Vaikuntha spoke to him the Chaturshloki, the 4 verses of the Bhagavatam.
For the 4 C verses.
Yes, the 4 C verses of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, and then by meditating on those, I understand then, if I understand correctly, after that he was able to realize the Brahma Samhita. And so then that, so there's the the second canto description of Brahma's journey. Then there's the Brahma Samhita, which also describes Brahma's journey of self-realization, where it said that he received first the Krishna mantra, I believe the Krishna mantra, and then from chanting the Krishna mantra, he then received the Kam Gayatri from Saraswati Devi.
Yeah.
And then from chanting the Kam Gayatri, then he realized the Govinda Madi Purusham prayers, which are, we famously chant in the morning on Srila Prabhupada's instruction. And then this is the third description, where he, again, similar to the second canto description, finds himself on top of this gigantic lotus flower in the middle of a dark universe, asking, like, what is this place? And at first, one of the key aspects of this whole Leela is that Brahma, again, he is the original, the first created living entity in this world. Swayambhu, born directly of from the navel of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So born directly from Vishnu Tattva. And yet, he's, even being the most intelligent living entity in the universe, still on his own personal endeavor, he couldn't figure out. He said, okay, well, I'm on top of this lotus flower. Maybe if I go down the stem of the lotus flower, I'll find the root here. And so it said through his personal endeavor, he actually did come very close to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, but as close as he was, he could not quite realize the Lord. And so, Srila Prabhupada, he remarks that yes, by the ascending process, by one's individualistic personal endeavor, one may come very close to realizing the absolute truth, but without relinquishing our false pride, without Sharanagati or surrender to Krishna, then Krishna is not liable to reveal himself to us. There's a sort of common debate of, okay, well, God can't be described with words. God, he cannot be known. And so our acharyas, they give the counter argument that we cannot know him by our own individualistic process of logic and reasoning, but the absolute truth is capable of making itself known to us. Yeah. Right? And so yeah, the absolute truth is capable of making itself, you could say himself, you could say herself also. The absolute truth is capable of making itself known to us. But again, Lord Brahma, even the topmost living entity in this universe, just by trying to figure it out on his own, he could not figure it out on his own. And so I believe it was after that, sort of individualistic endeavor, he heard the words tapa, do austerity. Then, he met Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha. And the far out thing is that in those second canto purports, Srila Prabhupada said that Lord Narayan came and he shook Brahma's hand.
He shook his hand, yeah.
And at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada specifically says, the Lord will gladly shake your hand too.
Yes.
What was it? Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. Even the definition of Krishna praying, love of Godhead, one might think, okay, love is defined as a sentiment, love is defined as the way you think about them, but the actual definition in Chaitanya Charitamrita is Krishna Indriya Prativancha Tare Premak Nam Atmendriya, Atmendriya Prativancha Tare Balikam. Basically, the desire to please one's own senses is lust or material desire. And it doesn't just say the desire to please Krishna, it says the desire to please the senses of Krishna is prem. Sevanam bhakti ushyate. It's specifically the desire to bring pleasure to his senses. So the acharyas, they make it clear, no, the absolute truth is actually a sentient being with senses. And it's the desire to please his senses that is actually Krishna prema at its at least simplest definition. So yeah, Srila Prabhupada said, the Lord shook his hand, he will shake your hand too. And then shortly after that, Lord Narayan, he speaks the seed verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Ahamevasameva gre nanyad yat sadasat param pascharaham yade tacha yo vashishyeta sosmyaham. Paraphrasing the translation, but before the creation, it was only I that existed. During the creation, everything that you see is me or a manifestation of me. And after the dissolution, it will only be me that is left also. And so, again, this is, these four verses are the entire Bhagavatam in seed form. So in very brief, Krishna is saying in this verse that, yes, I perceive that not only does Krishna precede the material manifestation, but the Kala Shakti, Anuradha and I were also studying Kala Shakti. What's interesting is that usually Kala is translated as time,
Yeah.
And yet early in this chapter, Srila Prabhupada says that Kala Shakti is avidya, it's ignorance. It's a manifestation of the mode of ignorance. It's also a manifestation of Lord Shiva. That, when Mahavishnu is glancing on the universe, one of the things he impregnates the universe with is the time factor. So it's, in our maybe Western lexicon, it's a little odd to say that, Vishnu, Krishna himself, he predates material time as we know it. And so sometimes they'll say in the spiritual world, there is no time is conspicuous by its absence. Or sometimes they'll say it's eternally the present. Because, we see that.
Where there's the eternal presence of transcendental time who is ever existing in this, thus free from past and future and not subject to the passing away for even the space of half a moment.
Yes. So sometimes it's said time is conspicuous by its absence, or more specifically that it is eternally the present in the spiritual world, because even the Nectar of Instruction Srila Prabhupada talks about the eightfold daily pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So there's a concept of time, but it's not divided into past, present, and future like we struggle with in this material world.
Each moment existed eternally.
Yes, and I forget where, but Srila Prabhupada even mentions in one purport that if you just really meditate deeply, and if you can enter into even just one of the pastimes of Krishna, then you can enter into the spiritual world from there. Because again, each pastime is eternally existing, both in the material world, in one of the universes, Krishna is enacting his pastimes, and then in the spiritual world, he is also eternally enacting his pastimes. So ahameva sameva gre nanyadyat sadasat param. I'm the source of all the cause and effects in this world. And even after everything dissolves in this world, only I will exist. And even the spiritual, the spirit souls, us conscious beings, we're part of the spiritual energy, but specifically we're part of the marginal energy, which means we have the capability to come under the shelter of Krishna's spiritual potency, Yoga Maya or Srimati Radharani, and we have the capability of coming under the shelter of the material energy, Mahamaya, also known as Durga, basically
I appreciate how you put shelter in quotes.
Yes. It's sort of like being under the shelter of the prison system. You are sheltered, but you're imprisoned. So us conditioned living entities, though we're of the spiritual nature, of the superior parapotency, we have the option to come under the dominion of the material potency. And then, let's see if I can remember them all. Ritertam yat pratyeta na pratyeta chatmani tad vidyanat manomayam yatabhaso yatatamaha. And so, in the first verse, Krishna, he's talking about himself, his eternal existence, and ultimately our eternal relationship with him. In the second verse, he's talking about Maya, about the material energy, that ultimately there is nothing but me, but my potencies. And so the perception that something is separate from me, that is Maya, that is avidya, that is illusion. And I remember in that purport, Srila Prabhupada says the Sanskrit words tad vidyat is the Lord's instruction to become enlightened, to come out of the influence of the material energy and to actually learn about how to serve him under the guidance of his spiritual potency. So those words, tad vidyat, it's the instruction of the Lord, and it's an injection of the internal potency of the Lord. But yeah, tad vidyat atmano mayam yatabhaso yatatamaha. What was it like?
I'm appreciating your emphasis on the perception.
Yes.
Because in one sense, nothing is Maya, but that's the first verse, ahameva sameva grain.
Yes.
Everything's Krishna, nothing's Maya. That's Maya, Prabhu. Nothing's Maya.
Yeah.
But to the extent that I'm not realizing the connection of everything with Krishna, then I'm in Maya.
Yes.
My consciousness, my filtered consciousness.
Right. Yeah. And again, it is our perception, basically due to our poor fund of knowledge, as Srila Prabhupada would talk about it, or in other words, due to our ignorance, our avidya. In order to try and enjoy this material world, we need a layer of avidya, and that avidya is broken into, there's tamas, I forget that I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, I forget that I'm a spirit soul. And so after forgetting who I am, I have to have a false idea of who I am. So then I think comes moha, the idea that I'm this body, I'm this mind. Then mahamoha, that which is in relation with my body is mine. My family, my property, my money, my pets, my ego, all the my's. And then tamishra, I think, is the frustration that comes with trying to basically enjoy life with all these misconceptions. And Undata Mishra is the sense of darkness that comes with believing that after the body dies, there's nothing left. And so these 5 types of avidya, these 5 types of ignorance, cover over the soul in order to allow us to try and live separately from Krishna, even though it's not truly possible. And so that is, Maya, as Krishna described to Lord Brahma in the second seed verse, that, the perception that, that anything is separate from me, that is my illusory potency. And then, let's see, the third chapter shloki. Do you remember how the third one starts?
No.
All right.
My chapter shloki memory stops with ahame vasame vagre, and then I'm fuzzy after that. So.
Okay. So I can only give the broad sense of the translation that in the third chapter shloki verse, the Lord, he talks about how just as the elements are simultaneously all pervasive in the creation yet separate from it, similarly I am all pervasive in all of the creation yet separate from it as well. And I've heard from different explanations of Srila Prabhupada, the Acharyas, that this is an explanation actually of prayojan or praying, that for the pure devotee, they actually come to see that Krishna, he's simultaneously present in everything, and yet they can feel great separation from him, yearning to have his association personally. And then the final verse I think I'm remembering. Etavade vijigyasam tat vijigyasinatmanaha anveya vyatirekabhyam yat syat sarvatra sarvadan. So the final verse talks about, Lord Narayan, he described the abhideya tattva, or the practice that one needs to do in order to develop that kind of pure love of Godhead, that desire to please the senses of Krishna, that perception of, Krishna everywhere. It's ironically, it's simultaneously the perception of Krishna everywhere, and yet the sense of separation and longing to have his association.
And that separation is bridged through love. Through
Yes.
The way I oversimplify the 4 seed verses. First verse, Krishna. Second verse, Maya. Third verse, Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, simultaneous oneness and difference inconceivably. And fourth verse, Bhakti.
Yes.
It's an oversimplification, but it works for me.
Yes. And so that was it. Etavade vijigyasam. So, understanding all this, one must do jigyasa. What was it? Atata Brahma jigyasa. So the Vedanta, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the commentary on the Vedanta Sutras, the natural commentary, since it's written by the same author. So the Vedanta Sutras starts with Atata Brahma jigyasa, and now in the 4 seed verses, Lord Narayan is saying to Lord Brahma, Etavad eva jigyasam, tattva jigyasanatmana. Now you must really inquire very deeply about the absolute truth. Anvaya vyatirekabhyam yet syat sarvatra sarvada, that everyone, directly or indirectly, knowingly or unknowingly, is searching for this absolute truth. And so directly one must search out this absolute truth. Also, I've heard that, Anvaya vyatirekabhyam means essentially anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam, that we must actively do what is favorable for Krishna, for devotional service, for the pleasure of Krishna, and we must make an endeavor to give up all that is unfavorable for Krishna. Anyambilashitashunyam jnana karma gyanavritam anukuyena Krishna nushilanam bhakti ruttama. That
like the definition of bhakti.
Basically, yes. Yeah, so we make an endeavor to accept all that's favorable to Krishna, reject all that is unfavorable for Krishna, and take full shelter of him. So again, Lord Brahma, he was a very highly elevated living entity, the topmost in the material universe. And so Lord Narayan, it only took him 4 verses, and it was enough for Lord Brahma to start practicing from there. And then, if I understand the progression correctly, after hearing the Chatra Shloki, then he was able to receive first the Krishna mantra, and by chanting the Krishna mantra, receives the Kam Gayatri mantra. Then he actually has his awakening of it's interesting. Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where they say he realized himself to be a maidservant of the Lord, but he did not realize further details of himself in that identity. So we know that much about him, that he had that much realization. And even the form of the Lord he realized, of all the different forms of Godhead, he specifically, Venum kvanantam aravinda dalaya taksham parhavatam samasitam buddhasundarangam Kandarpa koti kamaniya vishesha shobham govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. he realized of all forms of Godhead, the form of Krishna playing on his flute with a peacock feather in his hair, Alola Chandraka Lasadvanamaya Vamsi, that he has that moon locket, the flower garlands, he's in the threefold bending form of Sham Sundar. And so, Kalavilasam. And so this form is particularly indicative of Madhurya Rasa, Krishna with Srimati Radharani, which is described later in the Brahma Samhita, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis, that Krishna, he's eternally present with his Shakti, Srimati Radharani, and all of her bodily kaya view, her bodily expansion, so to speak. And so Lord Brahma, he, after doing tapasya, meditating on the 4 seed verses, chanting the Gopal mantra and the Kam Gayatri mantra, he had these deep realizations of Krishna in his topmost manifestation in Madhurya Rasa and Golok Vrindavan, as well as how all of the other manifestations of Godhead stem from that original Gopal form. Anadim Anantarupam. And it was actually, I think, a few verses ago on verse 26, Srila Prabhupada, he reminds us of that from the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, the Lord showed one of the many thousands of petals of his lotus feet, that after penetrating for millions of years, Lord Brahma could understand the transcendental form of the Lord as Sri Krishna in the dress of a cowherd boy, and thus he recorded his experience in the Brahma Samhita and the famous prayer, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami. And so then it would seem, just from the progression of verses here, it would seem that after that whole realization, then he came to, I guess, look down from the lotus and see, oh, now I see the whole lotus, the stem, the lake at the navel of the Lord, the majestic feature of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, looking at him with the thousands of hoods of Anantanaga. And so even as he's seeing this form of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, this form of majesty, he is well aware at this point of the origin of this form being, Sri Krishna in the Gopavesha, in the form of a cowherd boy. Yes. And just in line with, a lot of what Lord Brahma, he personally realized, okay, I have to give up my individualistic endeavor, and I need to actually take a mood of surrender in order to allow the Lord to reveal himself to me. I don't remember them all so well off the top of my head, but I know the 5 final verses of Brahma Samhita, which we actually don't as commonly talk about. Lord Govinda, he actually personally speaks to Lord Brahma. He said, I remember the way it's translated, my beloved Lord Brahma, I know that you are desirous to enact this material creation. You have the desire to have progeny and engage in this creation. And so, please take these instructions very carefully. And he gave Lord Brahma instructions on, what's interesting is that he gave him instructions on following the path of sadhus, more or less, or pure devotees, even though Lord Brahma is the first living entity in the universe. And I remember Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he gives instructions in those purports how there's direct activities of devotion, hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the deity. Yes. And then he talks about how there's supplementary activities of devotional service, things like, entering married life, working, charitable activities, things like that. They're not, directly devotional service, but they are supplementary to it and can be very important. So he's giving these instructions to Lord Brahma as he's about to enter family life in a very big way. He's about to start creating the whole, the whole material universe. And so yeah, Lord Brahma, it's a very fascinating thing. We're hearing all these stories about the originator of our sampradaya. We are in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya.
He's the first spiritual master after Krishna in the sampradaya. So there's to keep that capacity front and center when we're hearing anything about Brahma.
Right. And so with that, like a great mountain, the Lord stands as the abode for all moving and non-moving living entities. He is the friend of the snakes because Lord Ananta is his friend. As a mountain has thousands of golden peaks, so the Lord was seen with the thousands of golden helmeted hoods of Anantanaga. And as a mountain is sometimes filled with jewels, so also his transcendental body was fully decorated with valuable jewels. As a mountain is sometimes submerged in the ocean water, so the Lord is sometimes submerged in the water of devastation. With that, I will open the floor to any questions or comments.
I'm enjoying the kind of competitive riffing. Oh, you don't know that one? No.
Hopefully transcendental competition.
It's nice. It's I'm enjoying. And well, the thought that was on the top of my mind to share was being absorbed in a pastime, meditating on the pastime of Krishna. Is that what I'm not sure I understood, but it was like, so Brahma went down the navel to get to the root, and then was like, wait, this isn't the way or something. It's like the way is to have a it's not like the doing. It's like through the being, the relationship. And so kind of like when you said pastimes with Krishna, I guess it's because the pastime I've read the most is like the killing of Aghasura, the children's stories. And it's like each time I even think of that, what at least comes to mind, or almost visceral in my senses, is the stench of his stomach.
Oh, right.
And then also like being emotional when the cowherd boys find Krishna kind of like, or is it he finds the cowherd boys unconscious,
yeah,
and just like, you know, well, you know, we don't understand the emotion of Krishna, but then he gets bit, you know, it's like to save the friends, you know, it's just like his energy, you know, it's like that. So it's like I feel some emotion in connection with that story. So somehow like my brain simplified and translated like, yes, that's like the stench of Aghasura's disgusting stench. That's like meditate on, you know, this pastime. It's like that's like the most sensational, you know, meditation for me somehow. Yeah.
Well, it's a Krishna pastime, and you're engaging your olfactory sense in that pastime.
Goes right to the brain.
It makes a samskar, an impact.
Right.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I mean, part of it is that, yeah, I mean, the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada, they describe these pastimes as vividly as they do, obviously for a reason. That's, you know, that's how that's how Sri Shukadeva Goswami had originally described it. So, you know, they describe it in the way they do for a reason. And part of it is, you know, Srimad Bhagavatam, you know, part of the, you know, essential feature of Srimad Bhagavatam from the very beginning through the end is that it talks about the sweetness of the relationships between Krishna and his devotees. So, you know, with the pastime of Aghasura, you know, obviously Kamsa, he was trying to assassinate his nephew because he heard that his nephew was going to kill him someday. So he's trying his level best. He doesn't want, you know, necessarily want to do it himself. So he keeps sending assassins. You know, from the time, you know, Krishna was about 6 days old or so, he was just sending assassins to, you know, hey, find my nephew and kill him, please. Wow. And so one of them, you know, I forget exactly how old Krishna was during the Aghasura pastime. Couldn't have been. I mean, I think Krishna was only like 11 when he went to Mathura to kill Kamsa. So,
yeah, around there. Yeah.
Right. So quite young. And so, you know, the, you know, almost humor of it is that Krishna and the cowherd boys, they're out grazing the cows, and you know, they see this like miles-long serpent with a gigantic gaping mouth and his tongue open like a road. And they're like, oh my word, what is that? Let's go inside of it. Don't worry. If anything bad goes happen, Krishna will figure it out. Yep. And Krishna was like legitimately kind of stunned, like, oh my, what do I do?
And it's just that Krishna was kind of perplexed.
Yeah.
He's a person with all of the cognitive and emotional faculties of us.
Right.
Transcendent.
Right, and it's, you know, it's like if this were truly just a fully material pastime with only materialistic people, the material energy cannot cover Krishna's knowing or his all-knowing potency. So Krishna would have just, I don't know, thrown a gust of wind to blow Aghasura out of orbit. He could have literally done anything. You know, Srila Prabhupada makes the point that Krishna does not need to descend to the world to kill demons. Yet with a gust of wind, or he could have empowered devotee to kill them for him. Like, you know, ultimately, Lord Ramchandra, he could have just stayed in Ayodhya Dham in the spiritual world and empowered Hanuman to kill Ravana for him. There are so many Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, I know in one lecture Srila Prabhupada said with a gust of wind he could have killed these demons, but no, Sri Krishna personally descends in one basic sense to give us something to talk about. And so yeah, you know, what was it? Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkritam. That, you know, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to deliver the saintly and to annihilate the miscreants, I descend in this world age after age. And I believe it's in the teachings of Queen Kunti that Srila Prabhupada clarifies that, you know, Krishna doesn't personally need to descend to deliver the, you know, to do paritranaya sadhunam from a demon, you know, just to protect the devotee from material danger. Krishna doesn't need to descend personally for that. He descends personally to, one, give the conditioned souls a chance to actually hear about his pastimes, and for the liberated souls, or the pure devotees, he's delivering them from the pain of their separation from him. And so, for those pure devotees, like the coward boys and everything like that, he's there to actually fulfill their desires. That Krishna, he becomes subservient to the desires of his pure devotees. And so, the coward boys, they just have such a sense of shelter in Krishna. Krishna will take care of everything. And then, Krishna, because he's overwhelmed with their love for him, he actually does genuinely experience some level of, what do they call it, mugdata, or bewilderment, in figuring out, what do I do in this situation to protect and rescue my friends. And so, in that sense, he's doing puritarnaya sadhanam, and he actually does kind of come under the sway of the love of his devotees. Krishna Karshani, that one of the features of pure love of Godhead is that even the all-attractive personality becomes attracted and can, not that he stops his all-knowingness, but it becomes covered over. Similar with, when he fought Jambavan for the Shamantaka jewel, I remember, I think it was Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he explains that, when Krishna's fighting a demon, he has a spiritual body and he's fighting someone with a material body. So it's not a competition. It's just like, done. It's nothing. But when, for example, Jai and Vijay come as, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, or when a devotee like Jambavan is fighting him, then it's two people with a spiritual body fighting. And so that actually makes it a very powerful and transcendental fight. And so that's, the Srimad Bhagavatam talks about how, because of the love of Krishna's pure devotees for him, it allows Krishna to have an adventure of his own, basically. And so just bringing it back to the Aghasura pastime, it's, we can meditate on how sweet it was that Krishna actually had that sense of bewilderment, and that he basically followed after his friends. Nirapiksham munim shantam niravairam samadarshanam anuvrajamyaham nityam pujayat yangri renu. The 11th canto, Krishna tells Uddhava that actually I follow behind my pure devotees, because the dust of their lotus feet, it purifies the whole entire universe. So this is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he describes in that purport that Krishna, he made it a rule that in order to taste his own sweetness, one must take the dust from the lotus feet of a pure devotee on one's head. And so Krishna said, well, yadacharati shreshtas tadeve tarojana, that whatever a great man does, common people will follow. So I have to teach by example. I have to follow behind my own devotees and, take the dust from their feet. So he's just, almost helpless in a way. He's got to follow after the cowherd boys and make sure to go rescue them. And so there are so many sweet things to this pastime. I'm sure there's volumes more that could be said even about this one pastime alone. There's endless amounts of commentaries being translated into English, and I think it's like one of the introductory parts of the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada talks about how there are so many Acharya's commentaries, and so I'm only aware of little bits and pieces here and there of each of these pastimes. So it's each of these pastimes is a beautiful glimpse into the spiritual world of how Krishna comes under the dominion of his devotees' love.
How can the boys resist it? There's a cave. Let's go explore the cave.
Yeah.
Thanks for expanding the pastime.
We mentioned yesterday in our discussion at the Prasad table, Srila Prabhupada talked about Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, I think, was in Dhaka, which now is called Bangladesh. I think. And every day for 3 months, he gave a lecture just on 111, just on the first verse. Prabhupada would say all 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam and 700 verses about, they're like unlimited layers. The entire Sandarbhas are a commentary on the Bhagavatam.
Right.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, and I remember even when I met, Sri Aniruddha Prabhu, the one who just, had his 100th birthday. It's funny, because usually we think of, first you read Srimad Bhagavad Gita, then you read Srimad Bhagavatam. What's funny is that he told me, only somebody who's read Srimad Bhagavatam 40 times, many, many times, then you can go back and fully understand what was there in the Bhagavad Gita.
They're both true.
Yes.
Both true.
Yeah. Yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for class. I experienced myself seat, relishing all of your references. Speaking of a visceral reaction, when you spoke of the rain hitting the causal ocean, creating jewels, in this lifetime, one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had was they rent catamarans off the lake, U.S. lake, forgot what it's called. Anyway, a friend was learning, and Florida storm, right, came by real quick. We were all the other way on the other side, we couldn't get back. And we were on this lake, and the storm came, and catamaran's pretty flat, low to the water. And I got to see the rain falling, and it creates this effect where it pops up, and it's just a sea of jewels. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. So you describing it, I just very viscerally brought that up for me. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. And then Anandi?
Well, yes, I have two questions, but I want to comment on it. There's a poem by Rumi, the Sufi mystic, and the last line is, "Without the love of God, no drop of water can turn into pearl." So I was thinking of that when you were sharing. This was on our wedding invitation.
Oh, wow.
So I very much appreciate all that you shared about Lord Brahma and summarizing. So I have a clarifying question and another question. So it's all the same Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma first saw Mahavishnu, and then Narayan, and then he saw Krishna as Narayan, and then he saw Govinda.
Yes.
That's all the same.
And then after that, now where we're at, now after seeing Krishna as Govinda, now he's seeing Garbhodakshai Vishnu at the bottom of the Garbha ocean.
Oh, that's after.
Yes, yes. So it's...
So first it's Narayan.
Yes.
Then it's Govinda.
Then it's Garbhodakshai Vishnu.
Okay. Good.
As far as I know, this is the same Brahma going through the same journey. Because, there are so many Brahmas in so many universes, and not all of them are necessarily pure devotees. And so it's, it's from the progression show Prabhupada's talking about this in this purport. It does seem to be the same Lord Brahma, the originator of our sampradaya.
That's a question I had for many years. Are they different Brahmas, or are they the same? So it's all the same.
I believe this is the same four-headed Brahma, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you made a connection to the Maya as the shelter, our shelter.
Yes.
Like in the sense of a prison house. And a question I have is, what's Lord Brahma's role in helping us get out of the prison house?
Oh, interesting. Because Lord Brahma, the Guna Avatar in the Mode of Passion. It said at the final verse of the chapter that Lord Brahma, thus being surcharged with the mode of passion, being inclined to create, and after seeing the 5 causes of creation indicated by the personality of Godhead, he began to offer his respectful prayers on the path of the creative mentality. And so basically there's Sarga, which is primary creation, where Lord Vishnu himself creates the basic elements of the universe and creates Lord Brahma. And then there's Visarga, secondary creation, where Lord Brahma, he takes the ingredients Lord Vishnu has given, and he creates the different planetary systems. He creates the originators of all the different, basically, dynasties of human beings, demigods, demons.
Right, that's why he's referred to as like not the creator, he's like the engineer.
Yes.
Yeah, the first canto is entitled Creation, second canto,
secondary creation.
Secondary creation.
Yeah.
It's like the elements already created from the Vishnu Tattva, and Brahma, in a sense, creates, but he's engineering.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he got like the Lego stones.
Basically, yes. Yes, he basically he basically puts all the Lego stones together. So in his capacity as a Guna Avatar, as the incarnation of the basically the creator, basically. So in that capacity, he's basically just building. In one sense, he doesn't have a direct role in the capacity of a Guna Avatar. He doesn't have a direct role to liberate us from Maya. It so happens that this four-headed Brahma, is a pure devotee and is the originator of our sampradaya. So in the role of basically an acharya, or the originator of our sampradaya, we are taking his teachings, where we're reciting the Govindamadi Purushamparas. So we are, his role basically is that he's the first one given knowledge by Lord Krishna, by Lord Narayan, and he has then given that transcendental knowledge to Narada Muni, who gave it to Sri Vyasadeva, to Madhvacharya, all the way down to Srila Prabhupada and down to the current generation. So it's more, so yeah, it's not in his role as the Guna Avatar, as the incarnation of the mode of passion, that he helps us, but it's in his role as the originator of the Sampradaya that he is helping us to become
by his
delivered.
knowledge and by his example and his...
Yeah.
I appreciate very much the conversation and the distinctions, because it can get confusing or even harmful for our spiritual life if we're not properly realizing the distinctions of, because like there's Brahma in his role as Gunavatar, Brahma in his role as pure devotee spiritual master,
Yes.
Brahma in his role as Gunavatar,
Yeah.
and they're all related yet distinct. And so that's oftentimes when Srila Prabhupada is describing kind of Brahma in a role of demigods who are elevated, but they get bewildered sometimes.
Yeah.
Like the Brahma Vimohan Leela and that sort of thing.
Yes,
And
yes.
Prabhupada said, it's not for us to criticize Brahma, this is pastime, like that. And so then he's the chief spiritual master of our Sampradaya. So I appreciate the distinctions that are clearly coming out in the conversation.
Yeah, because the Guna Avatar, that is a post, and as I understand it, at some point each of us was in the post of Lord Brahma at some point. You know,
There's statements from Prabhupada that would seem to indicate that. Like
Yes.
there's a purport in the 9th canto. So yeah, there's statements from Prabhupada that seems to indicate that.
that either we were, or at the very least, any of us could attain that post, just as theoretically one could attain the post of governor, mayor, president, prime minister, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, those are not those are just posts that are to be filled by someone. And so Brahma, or the Guna Avatar in the mode of passion, that is a post that any one of us in this room could have been in, or could in some future life be in. It's not our goal by any means, but still, it's, so the post in and of itself, that's, that post is not responsible for helping the jiva to come out of Maya. But, it just so happens that our current Lord Brahma is, the Sampradaya Acharya. He's a pure devotee. He actually realized that divine form of Lord Govinda and had at least some sense of his eternal identity. So it's more the person who's in the post in this moment is a pure devotee.
So we're very fortunate that if Lord Brahma is not a pure devotee, then there's maybe far less, I don't know, but that's a speculation, Krishna consciousness in that particular universe.
That's I don't, because Lord Brahma, he's not the only. There's 4 prominent sampradayas. There's from Brahma. There's from the 4 Kumaras, which actually this chapter talks about how Lord Sankarshan, he started another sampradaya through the 4 Kumaras, and that's actually Vidura and Maitreya, they come in that sampradaya. So even if the Lord Brahma is a jiva who's not such a pure devotee, the Lord can originate the sampradaya from other personalities. And then if there's both, if there's no jiva in the universe who's qualified to play Lord Brahma, the post, then actually sometimes the Lord himself can just take the post of a demigod. Like I believe our current Surya Dev might be, Surya Narayan. He's an actual, he's not a normal demigod.
That's why he's named Surya Narayan.
Surya Narayan, yes.
Incarnation of Krishna.
Yes. So sometimes certain demigods, again, the post is just there. Sometimes the post may be filled by a pure devotee, or if there's no jiva qualified to fill the post, then sometimes the Lord will just directly incarnate into that post. Like I think, as I understand, Lord Yamaraj, he happens to be an eternal associate, a pure devotee. With Lord Brahma, he's a pure devotee. With Surya Dev, not a pure devotee, but he's actually Bhagavan himself. So these posts can be filled in several interesting ways.
And Bhumi is a pure devotee too?
As far as I know, she is considered a Shakti or direct consort of Lord Varahadev. I'm getting the nods from Asha, so I'm taking it.
A confirmation.
Yes.
She starts off the whole Krishna book.
Yeah.
Sincere prayers.
And as I understand, in every incarnation of the Lord, even the word incarnation is a troublesome English word that doesn't correctly convey the word avatar, but anyways, it's another discussion.
Just this morning, because before Japa we read something from Srila Prabhupada about chanting.
Yeah.
We read this lecture, maybe 1960s, a pretty long excerpt, and Prabhupada speaks about incarnation, but then he kind of, just like you just now, Really, the word is avatar, which means one who descends from up to down.
Yes. Yeah, and even the word incarnate, it has the verbal root karn, which means flesh, which gives the exact wrong idea of the Lord's avatars, because the Lord does not take a form of flesh. He comes in his Satchidananda body. The Ishopanishad said it was that he doesn't have like vessels that bleed or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, ironically, the word incarnation directly goes against what the Acharyas say, which is that no, the Lord does not take a flesh and blood body. He comes directly in he descends of a tirna to descend. But yeah, so the Lord, he can, he'll descend in various ways. Sometimes, he'll empower a pure devotee to descend in a certain role. So, yeah. Asha?
So, in the beginning, you were mentioning that the literal meaning of tapa is penance. But you mentioned also that when Brahmaji tried to go down the stem and he came very close to seeing this Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, but he could not see and understand, he could not realize at that time. And so you mentioned that through the ascending process, it is not possible to be able to understand the Supreme Person.
Yes.
But really, it is through the descending process when the Lord reveals himself that it's possible to understand. So I guess it's a two-parter. That one, you mentioned again, tapa quite literally means penance. So in essence, are you saying that tapa really means surrender, because Brahmaji had to surrender to understand he is not actually capable of realization at this time? It has to descend upon him. And then the second thing is, why is the descending aspect so much more valuable and important than the ascending?
Thank you for that. So yeah, that definitely tapa does mean tapa, especially in the context of this pastime, it means surrender. And I believe Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he mentioned specifically Lord Brahma had to give up any false pride that I'm the first living entity in this universe, I can figure it out. So in other words, yeah, it's daimya karpanya, it's the sense of surrender, that I do have to surrender the sense that I can figure it out on my own. And yeah, the reason the descending process is so essential in our path is that we are dealing with someone, or ultimately an entire spiritual cosmos of someones who are in a superior position to us. And so the empiric modern scientific method, and I know you've been through the Slaughterhouse University system as more than I have actually, so you know better than I do, that this empiric scientific method, it actually works very well for things that are inferior to us, dull matter. Like we could do all kinds of experiments with this table. How much does it weigh? Does it float in water? How long does it take to decompose? How much pressure can we give it before it breaks? It's dull matter is inferior to spirit. So the empiric method, it works great for things that are dull matter, that are very simple. Then as you start to get more and more complex, okay, dealing with the dull matter of the human body, well, it's connected with life, so it starts to get more complicated. But still, medical science, they have made a lot of progress in, they're not perfect, but they've made a lot of progress in different medicines and especially in diagnostics. It's more complicated than this table, but it's not directly spirit. So empiric method still works pretty well. Then you get into the soft sciences of psychology and social services and things like that, where you can, with some level of accuracy, maybe predict why a person behaves the way they do or how they're going to behave depending on circumstances. But
that's why they're called the inexact sciences.
The inexact sciences. Basically, it's the euphemistic way of saying, we cannot predict and control this as much as we would like to, because empiric science.
As much as we can predict a rock falling at a certain velocity.
Yes. So, it's as it's becoming. It's sort of like, okay, well, I'm with my mind trying to figure out. This table works fine. My mind is superior to the table. As a spirit soul with a mind superior to the table, as one spirit soul under the dominion of my mind, trying to figure out someone else's mind, basically psychology. now I'm dealing with something that's more or less on my level, so it becomes a very inexact science. We can say, oh, well, we understand why this person acted this way based on previous history, but people overcome history all the time. People overcome conditioning all the time. That free will, B.F. Skinner and certain behavioralistic sciences say, no, if you give me a child, I can raise them to be any career I want them to be, and they never actually prove that to be true, because human beings aren't robots. That we have that sense of consciousness or free will. Of two people can go through the exact same traumatic incident. One person can come out stronger, and the other person can come out crippled.
Similar childhood tragedies, and then one will maltreat children as a result. But that's false to say as a result, because others could go through this practically the same or even worse tragedies as a child, and they dedicate their life to be a champion to prevent child maltreatment. So it's not a linear cause and effect.
Right.
There's consciousness involved.
Right. And so already just by by using the ascending process for something that's more or less equal to us, it becomes a very inexact science. And so now we're dealing with, now that we're actually dealing with not, so I guess, that's the mind. And then to try and understand just the eternal spirit soul before we even get into God realization or the absolute truth. Well, now we're dealing with something that's superior to the mind, because the mind is just tied with this body. And so, it's very limited how far one can get in understanding the spirit soul. Although, different philosophers, they kind of come close to recognize, okay, I'm the observer of my mind. A lot of, books like The Power of Now, which I'm quite fond of, they sort of get into, okay, but if I can observe my mind, I'm not my mind. I'm the Sakshi, I'm the witness. I'm something that exists beyond time. I'm something that exists beyond my mind and body. And then basically there's sort of a limit at Brahman or impersonal realization. I am spirit. There's some kind of grand spirit, but then, through the ascending process, we only have our limited mental and sensual faculties. So there's such a limited quantity of information we can get, because we're starting to deal with something that is superior to us. Again, the soul is para prakriti, or superior energy. And so then when we actually start dealing with, Krishna himself, Srimati Radharani, Golok Vrindavan, the pure devotees, we are now dealing with some entities that are superior to us, even as spirit souls. We're spirit souls under the conditioning of the material energy. But it's in that Thakur Bhaktivinoda article from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says there is an eternal line of demarcation between the saviors and the saved. And he's talking about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur being one of those saviors. But that goes for Srila Prabhupada, for all of our acharyas, that there is such an eternal demarcation that they are eternally in the superior position. So now the ascending process, or the empiric method, it becomes irrelevant, because I'm dealing with somebody who I'm not in control of, who's actually liberated, who in a certain sense, especially when it comes to Krishna, can control the circumstances of my life. And so, the ascending process, it's a process of arrogance. It's sort of like when someone says, oh, well, show me God. But it's like, no, like you can't even demand the president to show himself to you. So why should God deign to give into your whims? So the ascending process, it fails because we're dealing with things that are superior. And it's just, there's that sort of maybe control or power trip of like, hey, the scientific method got us this far and we can control this much of the world. And so if there's something that's out of the sphere of what empiric science can describe to us, then that's where that Origin magazine talks about reductionism, where, well, if it's not within the purview of empiric science, then we're just going to hope that it doesn't exist at all. Because
it's a very unscientific, dogmatic comment to say that nothing exists that could possibly be out of the purview of my reductionistic, mechanistic, deterministic, material mind, and by it's a very dogmatic comment.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm reminded of the saying, work like everything depends on me, and pray like everything depends on Krishna. I appreciate very much the discussion and the descending process. So ultimately, it's the grace of Sri Sri Radha Krishna, Sri Sri Gauranitai. Ultimately, it's the grace. And then same as we hear, like Brahma's engaging in intensive tapa. And say, ultimately, it's the grace. So clearly, my course of action is to just sleep in maybe till noon, Because it's the grace. It's the grace.
Right.
Then there are things we could do, like do tapa.
Right.
I would have preferred to sleep in, but I'm doing a tapa. I'm doing a tapa. Right, I rose. 3 a.m. Read some transcendental literature, chant japa, samsaradava, nalalita loka, bhagavatam. Okay, so now, so based on the tapa we've done for these few hours, we prepared our consciousness to be a lot more receptive to receive we've said it's personal, absolutely. Yeah. We've sent the message like Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, Srimati Radharani, Sri Sri Gauranga. We're sending the message. Yes, like this is what I want you. Remind George Harrison song last week. I really want to see you. I really want to know you. And so like we can act in a way. It doesn't force them. At the same time, we're showing that this is really what I want. So it's like a personal reciprocation.
Thank you.
To those points exactly, Prabhu, I'm coming to realization. You said we've learned to control the material world, but it only goes so far. And so what I get is superior to imposed control is cultivation of relationship.
Yes. Yeah. And even in the purport to the Maha Mantra that you had read yesterday, Dad, Srila Prabhupada, he famously says that the more we try to control material nature, the more we become entangled in her complexities. Mm-hmm. And so that that is then Asha, another issue with the ascending or empiric process, that the more we try to control Maya, the more we become deeply entangled in material nature. So it's but no, I really like how you put it, that over trying to control, we need to actually be ready to cultivate a relationship. And ultimately, I mean, even in the material sphere, we see that, okay, if I try to control someone in a relationship, then it leads to a lot of tension. Whereas if I give up control and actually focus on relation, on connection, then the need to control sort of melts away. And so this is taking it but to the ultimate Sambandha, Bhagavan Sambandha, that the original relationship, or the central relationship underlying all of our relationships, is our relationship with Sri Krishna. And so the more we actually cultivate that relationship, then it's more that we stop trying to control, and we come in touch with the reality that no, Krishna already is in control. And obviously the cowherd boys, they had full realization, I don't need to control anything. Krishna's in control. He'll figure it out. But it's the more we have that deep relation, as we see perfected in associates like the cowherd boys, the gopis, the gopas, then there's no more question of control, and it's without even trying to control. The only thing that's being controlled is Krishna, ironically, being controlled by their love, by that sweet relationship.
I appreciate everyone's comments, and also what Dad had mentioned with regard that could have slept in until noon, but the part of the tapa, like you mentioned, the penance side of it, it's sort of why I really appreciate not just that definition of the doing, making the endeavor, but also within the very definition of surrender, or the Sharanagati, that the first two aspects of it are accepting what is favorable and rejecting the things that are unfavorable. Mm-hmm. So doing the things that are favorable are the rising early and reading the Vedic literatures, and chanting, cleansing the mind, and all of eating more sattvic foods, all of these things, rejecting what is unfavorable, sleeping until noon, wasting the whole day, and what I'm sorry, your name is
Rosa.
Rosa, I'm sorry. So, what Rosa mentioned about, the connection, about the, focusing on relationship, you can even tie in surrender also to that too, is that, you're accepting what is favorable for relationship, rejecting the things that are unfavorable. So unfavorable is control, thinking that I can somehow, try to dictate what someone else should do. And then on the other side is accepting what is favorable, even in terms of not just our relationships, but eternally with Krishna. accepting what is favorable, that how can I learn to love Krishna? That is the basis of this relationship with him. Then how can I actually accept what is favorable to learn to love Krishna? And quite naturally, everything is an aspect of Krishna. Everything is Krishna, like you mentioned. So all the jivas, big, small, young, old, all are aspects of Krishna. So that how can I also learn to love these various living entities as well? So it's quite a fascinating concept of this penance and surrender.
It's fascinating. I appreciate how you say that way. That becomes the way you describe it. Like the clarity, like that becomes a reference point, because so much in psychology and coaching and transformation gets into relationships and boundaries and so many things. And then the way you describe it, it's like, well, that's the reference point. Yeah, like what boundaries, what communication, what relation with emotion, or what relation with cognitions, what relation with every relationship. Yeah, that's what's going to support me to come towards loving Krishna more enthusiastically. Anukulyasya varjanam, anukulyasya sankalpa, and then what kind of relation, what kind of boundaries, what kind of relation with emotion or thought is going to alienate me more, patikulyasya varjanam. So, because till now I've tended to think about that. I mean, whether it's the money energy, or the physical fitness energy, or the career energy. Yeah, like how to relate to it, so it's favorable, and then just getting fuller realization in terms of relationships and what we share and when we choose silence and like that. Hare Krishna.
And then two little.
I just noticed Parampara Prabhu wrote, Hare Krishna, dear brother Abhi, thank you for your class. Very energetic, enthusiastic, and fascinating. I hope you're giving classes regularly, as this would be very uplifting to humanity. And then Parampara continues, I can see the devotees are blissful in their exchanges due to the association with you and your good wife. I am sorry to miss it in person. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, I'm sorry. Damayanti wrote the first one, dear brother Abhi.
Oh.
Okay, I'm getting my chats mixed up. So Damayanti wrote the first one. Thank you for that correction, Rachel. And Parampara wrote the second one. Okay. Yes. I'm having flashback to June 2014. Damayanti and Abhi in the same Safatov Advanced Seminar together.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Definitely very fond memories, and both Damayanti, Parampara, Rohini, Garuda. It's definitely. I'm always grateful for the association we've had together. One of these days, I'm sure we will get to see how our association in person again. And so two verses that I wanted to make sure I don't forget. So one, I think I remember the third C verse. Yatamahanti bhutani bhuteshu chavacheshvanu pravishtani apravishtani tatateshu nateshvaham. And it's basically that, Krishna, just as the elements enter but don't fully enter, similarly I've entered into creation but am separate and apart from it. And so there, this is, as you had said, achintya beta beta tattva.
Yeah.
It's such a foundational principle in our philosophy, and it goes so very deep into explaining both the distinctions between the living entity and the Lord and the material nature, how the pure devotees, the eternal associates, experience Krishna in their transcendental love of Godhead. Because I remember, Anu and I forget where we were hearing it from, but maybe it could have been from Mukunda Prabhu. Basically, when Krishna had sent Uddhava to console the gopis, Krishna said, okay, I want you to say this verse to them 3 times. They're going to ask you about it. And I want you to repeat the verse. Prem Prayojan Prabhu, yes. So I want you to repeat this. They're going to ask you about it. I want you to just repeat the same verse 3 times. And so the gopis said, oh, what does Krishna have to say for us? And Uddhava said, Yatama hanti bhutani bhuteshu chavacheshvanu pravishtani pravishtani tatateshu nateshvam. Now she may have to help me with this. I'm a little hazy on the details, but the gopis are saying, okay, well, what is this? Krishna saying that he's here, but he's not here. What is it? And I'm really like paraphrasing it here. I know there's greater detail, but the gopis ask, well, what does he mean? And Uddhava, he just says the same verse again. Yatama hanti bhutani bhuteshu chavacheshvanu pravishtani pravishtani tatateshu nateshvam. And the gopis said, oh, okay, so when we're feeling separation from him, he's saying that he gives us a sporty or just like a vision in our minds of him. And that's how he's consoling us. But they still weren't satisfied, so they asked for further clarification. And so the third time, Uddhava says, Yatama hanti bhutani bhuteshu chavacheshvanu pravishtani pravishtani tatateshu nateshvaham. And this time the gopis had a really far realization, which Srila Jiva Goswami clarifies in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in his commentary, that the gopis realized, oh, actually we're eternally existing in Golok Vrindavan, and what we're experiencing here in this conditioned world is just one aspect of ecstasy that we're experiencing in our eternal state, as from Golok Vrindavan. But they had a brief awareness. And Srila Jiva Goswami says usually that awareness is covered because otherwise they couldn't experience separation. Because then they would, if they actually were recognizing, oh, I'm with Krishna right now in Golok Vrindavan, no problem. But no, Krishna allows that awareness to be covered, and then occasionally, when they're in very deep separation from Krishna, then they sort of go deep in their heart and they start experiencing what they're already experiencing up there. So this is, describing very elevated, this verse, Lord Narayan told the Lord Brahma, in seed form, it's describing very elevated states of pure love of Godhead, of, the gopis. And so, the verse finally came to my mind, so I had to make sure I shared that. And then just in terms of, what tapa means, that burning, that austerity, I'm reminded of the verse from Rishabhadev, the second half of the verse, Tapo divyam puchakayena sattvam shudya yasmad brahma sokyam tvananta. That it's not just any tapa, but it's, again, Lord Brahma can just hear the word tapa and he knows what to do from there because he's incredibly intelligent. But it's further clarified. It's not just any tapa. It's not some self-inflicted. It's not a masochistic.
It's not tapa in the mode of ignorance.
Yeah, it's not one of the austerities that hurts the super soul within. It's not just self-inflicted pain. No, it's tapo divyam. It's transcendental austerities. It's austerities that come in parampara. Tapo divyam putraka. Putraka, my sons. Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam, and it's not just sattvam, the mode of goodness, but it's sattvam shuddha. It's do the austerities and the parampara that bring you to pure goodness, beyond even the material mode of goodness. Shuddha yasmad brahma sokyam tvanantam, and ultimately, by living this life of tapo divyam, you taste brahma sokyam tvanantam, unlimited, unending spiritual pleasure. And so, with that, any last question or comment? Yes.
Unless someone else. Okay. So we did 64 rounds yesterday.
Yes.
And I've never done that before. I went into it trying not to have any expectation, but on the other side of it, I'm experiencing something that feels unpleasant. I feel very uncomfortable. And I've been in the question of it and just trying to be with myself, but like something that I'm getting from this talk today is it might be a depth of understanding, separation, and like in that I might have expected through greater tapasya, right, like increasing my rounds, that I would have been more blissful or more joyful. And I'm having the opposite experience. And I've been in the question of like, did I do this in ignorance? Is this why I'm having this terrible feeling? Or what is going on? And I don't know where my question is. But that's my experience, and I'm suffering.
Thank you very much for being vulnerable enough to share that. And I know you don't know where your question is, but it is a very good question. I'm confident of that. And so I know what's coming to mind for me, a few things. One is that, as there's Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojan. First, there's Sambandha of who am I, who is Krishna, what's the material nature, and then with the knowledge of what our relationship is with Krishna, then we do Abhideya, we do spiritual practices such as chanting japa. In this case, you went the big leap for 64 rounds. And then that practice helps us cultivate the ripened fruit of devotion, which is pure love of Godhead. And so as we're watering the Bhakti Lata Bij by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and chanting the holy names, the Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that all kinds of other seeds of desire, all kinds of other, different types of false ego, those other plants get watered, just as when you're watering a plant, the various weeds and unwanted plants get watered as well. And so sometimes when we do the tapa, when we do intense austerity, we start to come in contact with a lot of the false ego or false egos. And so, you've done, depending on the intensity of our sadhana, we may come across it very powerfully and painfully, or we may sort of skirt around it very slowly or progress very slowly. So by doing very intensive devotional practice, I can only think that there's some part of your false ego, some anartha, grungy, whatever you want to call it, that is being really challenged by the chanting process. And ultimately, you're coming in contact with something other than the identity of I'm an eternal servant of Krishna. And so, Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Valerie. Hari Bol. Thanks for participating in your presence.
Yeah.
And so with that, to what she was saying about approaching devotional service, I mean, I approach and I feel that I am deaf, dumb, and blind. Like,
yeah.
So, I remember one time one devotee, he also chanted many, many rounds. After chanting, he was becoming more consistent, more regular. And then, he went to his guru and he said, Gurudev, he said, I would think that after chanting so much, I would be very peaceful, very happy, but actually all this anger is coming. Why am I so angry? And so, like what he's saying, that when we do water, the right thing, which is that Bhakti Lata Bij, then sometimes these other things sprout up, these other weeds. So to be a very expert gardener, we have to be able to pluck those weeds and recognize that they're not actually what, we're desiring. But it's not inherently wrong that these things are coming up, because essentially, when you are engaging in a new relationship, things are very vulnerable. You're on your best behavior. All these things. So even with Krishna, we're trying to do the right things. We're trying to get up early. We're trying to, and Krishna, at the end of the day, he's just looking at deeply what is in our heart. So sometimes for that very advanced devotee, they're not able to say, because their body is very frail or they're very sickly or things, then Krishna makes a concession. He's like, oh, then don't worry for this thing. I will come to you, that I will sit down for you. I will do all of these. So it's a very elevated state, but still, the endeavor was made consistently, and that constant reciprocation was always there. So it's not inherently wrong that we experience a negative emotion, that we sort of think of it as like a byproduct, like when we're sifting through, we're trying to find gold, but we have to sift through a lot of rocks in order to actually find the essence. So, we do have to sometimes sift through all of the vulnerabilities and all of the so-called negative things in order to get to that actual jewel or gem. But in the beginning, it's like very fraught with like so much like, whoa, like what is happening? I'm very upset and angry and frustrated, and all of these things are coming. But it's like having jaundice. In the beginning, it's very poisonous, or how do you say it? It's like distasteful.
Yes.
But as that jaundice gets to be more cured.
Yeah, the treatment for jaundice is sweet, and the sweets taste bitter.
Yes, so as the jaundice becomes more and more cured, then the actual sweetness of that sweet candy begins to come. So the same thing also, the chanting is like that sweet, and the jaundice that we're experiencing right now, it sort of is like very bitter, like, oh, this chanting, whoa, like, I don't like it. It's very boring and monotonous, and I have to get up so early, and And even then, with chanting the holy name, there's no real rules. You can chant it in the bathroom if you wanted to. You could chant it while laying down. There's so many, with the holy name, it's very merciful. But as that those feelings start to go, maybe those negative feelings start to go, then the taste of the holy name starts to come, and it becomes sweeter and sweeter and sweeter, and there's a relishment that comes. So that's just what I was remembering, that one devotee experienced so much anger, as a result of chanting and consistent chanting, but it was not a negative thing, as Guru just said, keep chanting.
When I describe myself, experiencing myself as deaf, dumb, and blind, I just think about interpersonal relationships as we know them, right? And I've experienced me approaching someone else, or someone approaching me in a way that is blind, where like they're trying to do the right thing, right? Like they're trying to say the right thing, they're trying to but it even feels transactional in how awkwardly they're reaching. And so I'm thinking of the same with the chanting. If I'm doing it in ignorance, it's almost a transactional situation where it's like, Krishna, look what I did, right? Like, isn't this the right thing? Isn't this what you want? It's like, eh. And so the bad feeling, I understand, is the same thing with if we meet someone who's approaching us in such a way with compassion, the relationship there, the exchange, can create a refinement in the relationship, right? Because you're getting the feedback like, no, not quite, right? Like this, no. It gives them an opportunity to switch it up, to meet you and you meet them. And so I know that this is something like that, and I'm just frustrated because I'm looking for the refinement, and I don't understand it yet.
Right. And can you say a little bit more about what you mean by refinement?
I'm trying to come up with an example that would be tangible, but if someone comes to you in a very transactional way, can you think of a time where that's happened, where it's like someone's like trying to buy your love? Right? And you experience that from them, and there's, for me anyway, I get this feeling like, oh, that's a nice thing, but something's wrong. Yeah. Right? And instead of just rejection, right, there's the compassion of being with that person and introducing information where they can then reapply themselves. Right. And so I see that as both refinement for them and their desire to approach, and then also personally, as the one receiving, it's a refinement for myself and how to consistently show up compassionately. And so I guess, coming back to your japa, your relationship with Krishna, do you feel like it's maybe you being transactional towards him, or him being transactional towards you, of like, oh, well, I'm supposed to chant 64 or 1664, like I'm supposed to do this, right, Krishna? Like, this is what you want from me? And that's why when I said that I purposely had this thing in my head of like, don't have an expectation about this experience when I was going into it. And then I got to the other side of that, and I don't know how truthful I was. And when I say that, it's because, well, I got to the other side of it, quote unquote, I accomplished, right? Like check mark. And if I was just being with myself, what I felt was alienated, to be honest. I was experiencing all kinds of things. Like I was mildly frustrated. I didn't want to socialize. I was sequestering myself. And all of these things that are not usually my way of being. Right. So not necessarily that, either I'm being transactional toward him, or towards Krishna, or he's being transactional towards me, but it's just like, it's just bringing up like, I sort of want to just go inward rather than connect with anyone right now. And again, part of it is just that, the Maha Mantra, it is a consciousness raising activity. And so sometimes as we raise consciousness, we sometimes become more aware of maybe different things that have been troubling us. Also, I mean, it's like, 64 rounds, that is, from early in the morning, that is quite an intense thing. It can be taxing in a way, for sure, to just do such intense. And I think, you were more or less doing like Mona Vraj, only chanting, not really speaking. So, especially if you're not used to those kinds of austerities, then it would make sense. It's like, okay, like I'm done for the day. So just in a very basic sense, it does make sense that you would be done for the day. Again, I've met someone who's been chanting 64 rounds a day since 30, and now he's 100, and so
he gets up, chants 64 rounds by 8 in the morning, and then he sees people at his house, and he writes books, and he just talks with people, and he's good with it. But that's because he's been doing 64 rounds a day for 60, 70 years, so he's comfortable with it. But we're not accustomed to doing such a high level of austerity. So, I mean, in the most basic sense, it just makes sense that you would be done for the day after such intense austerities. I don't know if you're that used to waking up that early either, so it's just, or even if you are still, it's a lot of intensive austerities where it would just stir up a lot for you. So in the basic sense, it could just be like a fatigue of, usually like the standard is 16 rounds. So it's like, okay, I did 4 days of austerities all in one shot, so I could just be done for the day.
In looking at it again, I'm trying to be present with myself and not criticizing. And one of the things that comes up for me is I feel it was a sobering event.
Yeah.
I usually show up very, if it's a mask, I'm not sure, but like I show up pretty like joyfully and enthusiastically. I've noticed that I'm like not about that.
Yeah.
And I wonder, and I'm curious if it's, you described the anger of this person, I don't know what's going on with anger. I feel a bit sour. I feel a bit sour.
Yes.
And I'm, again, just trying to be present with myself, but I am honestly a little bit concerned for my spiritual well-being because of the sourness. Like I have come to every morning program for some time. I almost did not come today.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I mean that was like a real choice, not a maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I saw myself leaning towards that, I said, love isn't just a feeling, it's an action. I've done this action, I'm going to continue doing this action, even if I don't feel like it. And today I didn't feel like it.
Right, and so
I'm going to suggest maybe we take this discussion to the
prashad table.
To the prashad table post class.
Yes.
Bring the official class to an end with.
All right.
Bhagavatam.
With that, thank you so much. Thank you also, Damayanti, Rachel, Lakshmi Priya, Kristen, Parampara, Rukmini. Thank you all so much for attending here. Thank you for all of you who attended in person. Vanchako patribhyascha kripasindhubhyevacha patitanang pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Please stay in honor of Prashad. Hare Krishna. Thanks for your presence and association. Rachel wrote, "Thank you, Asha, for sharing about jaundice being cured with sweets and the taste turning from sour bitter to sweet, the healthier one becomes, and how our experience and our spiritual growth can be like this. That is a pearl for me." Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, and Asha is referencing the Sri Upadeshamrita by Srila Rupa Goswami, given to us by Srila Prabhupada in the Sri Upadeshamrita. Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhagwan, they give that exact metaphor. So I'm moved that you were moved by how Asha shared.
Thank you. That was the Sri.
It's the nectar of instruction.
Oh.
The nectar. It's in there if you look at the. I'm thinking which verse exactly.
7, verse 7.
Text 7 is the jaundice verse. So I encourage you to read that verse in purport.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol.